I'm Adrian, the Cruise and Travel Guy, and Disney Cruise Line looks set to wind up its Australian operations pretty soon after it first started them. I wonder if this departure has been in the works for some time, so we'll talk about that. And stick around until the end, and I'll talk a little bit about a Facebook post of mine that gained some popularity over the weekend. Remember, when you're planning your next cruise or holiday, head to my website first, where you can search, compare, and book. Disney Cruise Line first announced its intentions to sail in Australia in 2022. And now, just 3 years later, we might be looking at the start of the end of the cruise line's Aussie run. Disney entered the local market with a lot of attention and a big splash, and it had the prices to match. Those early sailings were so popular. Most travel agencies and travel agents were swamped with registrations from people interested in getting on board. The reality is, though, that once the prices became known, a lot of people opted out, and I don't blame them. I cruised with Disney for the first time in October last year. I managed to get on board, and I did that as cheaply as I could, which for me ended up being a guaranteed interior cabin for 2 nights between Sydney and Brisbane, but it was still an opportunity to try the cruise line, and I have a full review on my channel. Of course, that cruise was on board its second oldest ship, Disney Wonder, and I do think that that has had some impact on the Australian reception of the cruise line. At the time, there were signs that the seasons weren't selling well. We saw discounting, a lot of discounting, which is not common for Disney Cruise Line. And it was obvious that there were many sailings that still had a lot of availability. And last minute on a cruise line that was vaunted as being this big addition to the scene here, that was a little bit strange. Especially compared to regular cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Princess, Carnival, which generally sell out their cruises, particularly over the summer months. I was even contacted by a Disney employee, name not mentioned, but they told me that they had the option of taking pretty much any Australian season cruise at an employee discount, and they told me that was incredibly rare, and in fact they had never seen that before. I was the first to raise these issues in a video I published on November 6th, 2024. I'll come back to that date a little later. Now, it appears to have been all but officially confirmed that Disney will not return to Australia for summer 2026-27, so 1 year from now. They have had a series of port bookings across the country, particularly Melbourne and Sydney, and these have started to vanish. Cruise Passenger first reported that Melbourne's port listings for Disney Wonder vanished a few days ago, and now I can confirm that the Sydney port schedule likewise has seen a deletion of all Disney Wonder port listings for 26-27. That means that its upcoming season, which begins this October and runs through to February 2026, is likely its last in local waters. But coinciding with this is the launch of Disney's largest ever cruise ship, Disney Adventure. The ship will sail year-round from Singapore beginning this December. Now, is Singapore local? Not really, but for Australians, it's not that far away. And the time zone isn't that different either. So even people on our west coast in Australia can face a more economical holiday by flying to Singapore than they can to the east coast of Australia, where most of our cruise ships reside. One of the concepts that I floated in the past is that Disney's local season could have been more of a marketing exercise. It really introduced the Disney Cruise Line product to a whole bunch of Australians that otherwise would not have had the experience. From that perspective, it means that many people, thousands in fact, have been introduced to a brand that they may have been interested in and may still be interested in. For those that enjoyed the Disney Wonder experience, they may be tempted to fly to Singapore and sample Disney Adventure, which will reportedly have a whole bunch more in terms of attractions and venues that will probably suit the Disney file experience a lot more than what Disney Wonder does. I have no doubt that the Australian cruising hallmarks as well of high port fees and a lot of regulation have contributed somewhat to the headwinds that Disney faced, but their pricing would have no doubt put many people off as well. I wouldn't even be surprised if Disney's local cruise seasons have been loss-making, or at a minimum, not very profitable. There were also a lack of varied itineraries, many shorter cruises that really were designed to highlight the Disney cruise experience, but many families who were looking to spend their holiday funds would probably have been shopping around, comparing them with Carnival and Royal Caribbean, and seeing that you could have a longer cruise that would take in more places spaces for a lower price. And really, even if you love the Disney cruise experience, comparing that cost basis makes it hard to swallow. I have reached out to Disney's media office for comments before I recorded this video, but have not yet received a response, not that I expect to. I think it's safe to say that Disney's local seasons are coming to an end, at least for the foreseeable future. If you've stuck through the video this long, here's a little snippet of what happened on Facebook over the weekend. I published a post last Saturday commenting on the likelihood that Disney's cruise seasons in Australia were coming to an end with this season that's about to start. On Sunday morning, I received a message from a representative of our well-established cruise publication in our market who asked me to provide them with credit on my post because they were first to talk about this story. The language used did say, if you've used us as a source, provide attribution, but then carried on to continue to specify how hard and how tirelessly their reporters work to gather this information and present it in story format. So there was no doubt in my mind that the inference was that I took their story and repackaged it. Now, I have no issue, and I have always provided credit in my stories and my videos here and on Facebook. If I've ever taken information from another source, I've always given credit and attribution because that's fair and that's good journalism. But it turns out that their hardworking reporters failed to see that I actually was the first in the market to talk about this issue on November 6th, 2024. This same publication published their own article days after I published my video and mentioned many of the same topics that I raised. I saw it then and I didn't say anything because it is what it is, and I'm the little guy and they're the well-established players. So of course I had to vent and I wrote a Facebook post, and I have to say I was absolutely floored with the response from all of you and from people on Facebook. I did not expect it to go that far and that wide, but I think it proves that what we're building here in this community is an independent type of media that cannot be pushed into the corner by these well-established players. And I mean independent. I work alone. I don't have a team around me. I don't have anyone to bounce things off, really. I have my family and friends, thank you. But it's different. When you have colleagues in your workspace, you know what that's like. I don't. I have to do this alone. I conceptualize, I write, I edit, I plan, I prepare, and I pay for the vast majority of my trips, which is not cheap. And that's how I travel. These publications rely on funding by cruise lines. So let's talk a little bit about where your priorities lie. While I don't want to harp on about this, I just have to say that the fact that I was contacted in the first place shows an absolute obnoxiousness and arrogance that I find quite fitting for an establishment like that, because I think they're flapped by the fact that an independent person can come along and get more traction than they can with their well-established media articles. I don't mean to sound too vitriolic, but yeah, it really rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm also glad to see that I have ruffled some feathers, that we have ruffled some feathers, because the support that you have shown me has been immense, and I'm so grateful. I am floored completely, and I know I've used that word already, but I don't know what else to say. I'm overwhelmed by the support and so grateful. So thank you so much. And as I always say, if someone's willing to do this to me, what are they doing to other people? I at least have some form of a voice. So, it always makes me question what they're doing to others. They made a really big miscalculation in this case, and I hope they've learned a lesson. Leave people alone. Oh, and the best part is that I was asked to remove that Facebook post. Yeah, no. Anyway, that's it. Let me know what you think about Disney's exit from the Australian cruise season. It's not exactly a big surprise. I don't think any of us are truly shocked by that. But still, I wonder if you think like I do that it was all part of a broader plan to really introduce the brand to the market and, help get people to Singapore. I think people that are Disney fans, it's not that long and not that far to go to experience it. So let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Give me a follow on Facebook and Instagram at The Cruise and Travel Guy, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Those early sailings were super popular. Most travel agents were swamped with registrations and it was obvious even back then that there were many sailings that still had lots of I wouldn't even be surprised if Disney's local cruise seasons have been a loss-making effort for the company, or at a minimum, very, very profitable little.